Happy Wednesday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees with WCNC Charlotte. Did you miss me? I know Becca did a fantastic job over the last few days, but I am back in action. Had some relaxing time off with a friend's bachelorette party in Charleston. It was fun. And now we're back. Yeah, it was fun. James, once you're over 30, things are just much more calm, You know what
Sure.
I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you have 2 kids too, so what are you getting into?
That's why I was like, what are you talking about, calm?
Well, I'm just saying in general. Anyway, so there were storms actually every single afternoon, like a classic beach day, here in the Carolinas, where it was sunny and hot in the morning and mid-afternoon, and then we had storms. Today, though, seemed like we were on a different planet here in the Carolinas, or at least in the Charlotte area, because we had very, very limited potential for rain. But something that did not change was high temperatures in the 90s. In fact, we're at day 10 now of temps at or above 90 degrees. Remember, we were at a stretch that was, I think it was 17 days, and then we broke it by 1 day, getting to 86. The day after, the morning, Chantal technically made landfall. Because of the breezy and cooler conditions, we only hit 86. But since then, it's been 90 plus. Today's high was officially 92 at the airport. I actually don't think we're going to see a break of the 90s anytime soon. So this streak could actually be even longer than the one we had at the beginning of July. So just know that that's coming. What's it like outside right now? Well, this is nasty. It's 87 degrees for the actual air temperature, but the dew point is 77. I know sometimes it's hard to quantify examples here, but James and Lily can both attest to this. 77 is so tropical. This is something more typical you would see during a tropical system nearby. And that tropical moisture is floating upward a bit because of the low pressure that we're continuing to watch along the Gulf Coast. But 77 is, for perspective, the highest heat index I ever had working in Southwest Florida and Fort Myers was 81 during a tropical system. And the record for, I think, the South is only like 83 or 84. So that's pretty gross, which is why it is 6:30, and it's actually technically the highest heat index we've seen all day at 99 currently. Now, what we're lacking is storms. Now, I talked a little bit with Colin and Vanessa about this earlier in the show, but we have high pressure nearby, and that sinking motion of air does help suppress storm activity. However, the heat and humidity we have almost every single afternoon in the Carolinas can kind of counteract that. So that is something that we'll be watching for tomorrow and Friday as well, as we look at lower rain chances. Unfortunately, what's going up, all the way up, is the heat index. So tomorrow we're going to hover right around 100 degrees, but that is not necessarily to the threshold that we talk about weather alert. I know that's is so confusing, and Lily and I were actually talking about this earlier, and I wanted to be clear with everybody. So technically the threshold that we at WCNC Charlotte, this is our threshold for or to talk about weather alert when it comes to heat, is a heat index of 103 or higher or an air temperature of 98 or higher. The reason why is that's scientifically shown to be where we start to see higher risk of heat-related illness. So heat exhaustion, heat cramps, and then prolonged exposure at those levels then can sometimes cause heat stroke. So if you're looking at this map and thinking, why the heck does Brittany have weather alert on 103 and not 102? That's the reason. 102, you can argue that's a little bit closer to normal for this time of year, but essentially any step above that gets us higher and higher to those elevated risks. And that's why a few years ago, the National Weather Service started putting out these maps calling heat impact maps. So we're looking at major impacts starting Friday through Saturday, Sunday. And I do think these will last through at least Monday. Monday trends a little bit downward on this official map. So what we'll do, and this is just any time that you're forecasting, just in general, we watch patterns and trends. So if we see the heat index spike and then start to trend downward, Monday might not be a day that's highlighted in terms of weather alert. But the main goal is to keep people safe. If you remember last time we had dangerous heat, the only chief meteorologist, Brad Panovich, said, and I think that this was a great way of explaining, so that's why I'm repeating it, that though we get a lot of comments this time of year about how it's always hot and humid, this is more dangerous, than normal. And as long as heat is still the #1 weather-related killer in the United States, we'll still keep talking about it. So I thought that was a really good way to explain. Something that we're lacking, though I mentioned this a second ago, is really storms. We have the storm fuel, but high pressure seems like it won today. Only some light rain there on the east side of I-77 between Cornelius and Kannapolis, and one little cell here still churning its way through Rowan County, only causing some light to moderate rain here just north of Cleveland there. That's Cleveland, North Carolina there on the northern side of Rowan County. Other than that, we looked pretty good today. We did have, here, I'm going to back it up for 1 second. We did and do have a few, boom.
I think it
Boom.
rained at my house near Matthews
Oh,
today.
did it, James?
I know, it's
There
'cause
was a storm right around lunchtime.
It's because I watered my lawn this morning. That's
Of
why it
course.
rained.
There are some, where's the tool I'm looking for? Some outflow boundaries, that we'll continue to watch just because of the, nature of outflow boundaries causing additional storms and the fact that it's still so muggy outside. But as of right now, not something I'm too concerned about. Futurecast for tomorrow morning, I do think we could see a few isolated storms by the early half of the day in the mountains. It does look like we're trending mountains and foothills mostly, so think north of the I-85 corridor. Yes, I know that technically I-85 does not go east to west; it goes north to south. But you guys know, you know what I-85 is. If you've ever driven it, whether it's here to Richmond or here to Atlanta. Anyway, so the rest of tomorrow afternoon and evening, again, main storms along the north of the Charlotte area. Friday's kind of a rinse-repeat forecast. I don't think we see a lot of storms, but the storms that do develop will produce pockets of heavy rain, gusty winds and lightning. No severe risk is expected. Now, by Saturday and Sunday, rain chances go lower, which means heat and humidity goes higher. So again, that's why we're keeping folks weather alert. Speaking of something that's changing or getting higher, I guess a little bit, still watching tropical development chances there down in the Gulf. Right now, the low pressure that has a low to medium chance of development over the next 7 days is essentially right over Panama City. So right there in the northwestern corner of the Florida Panhandle. That was the word I was looking for. I think at this point, this is similar to Chantal. Rain with a name. Sometimes these storms get names, which I understand why, right? They hit the tropical threshold, but this doesn't change the impacts from northwest Florida all the way toward the Gulf Coast, from pretty much Houston to New Orleans. It's going to produce a lot of heavy rain, gusty winds, and probably even some additional storm surge. But other than driving a little bit of tropical moisture northward here into the Carolinas, which we've kind of already seen this week, one of the reasons why we had so much moisture and training storms Monday and Tuesday, that's essentially the biggest thing that we're worried about. This is not going to be a huge impact to us here locally. I want to repeat that again, not going to be a huge impact to us here locally. I know people still have a lot of storm anxiety. I know we talked about this a little bit with Chantal. Again, nothing like Helene. Additional tropical moisture, which is already here, will continue the next few days. So as you look at your 7-day forecast, again, you'll see those 4 days I highlighted with the weather alert. Again, that's just for 103, if not higher. I just want to be fully transparent about that. I will also say that the National Weather Service in Greenville-Spartanburg, which covers Charlotte, their threshold for a heat advisory is 105, so it is a little bit higher than our weather alert little icon that you'll see there, but just something I want folks to keep in mind here over the next few days. So other than it being hot and humid locally, we of course have had storms the last few days. We have a ton to talk about, and so in just a second we're going to bring in Chief Meteorologist Tim Buckley from our sister station WFMY. Welcome back. We are here with the one, the only, Tim Buckley, Chief Meteorologist at WFMY. Tim, you have your own little nook. That's what James is calling it.
This little studio, we wanted to make it sure it looks similar over here. We've got the color scheme, we've got the logos, we've got everything ready to go. So it's good to see you, Brittany. How you been doing down in Charlotte today?
I'm doing okay. I always say this time of year, so I have naturally curly hair, so I always say this time of year that like every single time you pop in for a show at a new half hour, like my hair grows and grows more and more as we go throughout the show. So it's kind of been one of those days. We have a dew point right now of 77.
One thing I've been meaning to look up, at least for our area and anywhere in the Carolinas, is when is the last time we had dew points below 70? I haven't looked it up yet, but it seems like it's been the whole month of July so far. And kind of looking at the extended, it's just depressing because it seems like that humidity is not going to stop for the next couple weeks. We're just going to be kind of in the long haul. There's no change, right?
Yeah,
Monotonous,
I feel like the last time had to have been in
humid forever.
mid-June. Didn't we have a cool down in like mid-June?
I'm sure we probably did, but I can't even fathom it at this point. At this point, it's just Groundhog Day, the movie. Every day you wake up, rain in the afternoon, humid in the morning, and we're kind of just stuck in that same pattern. So I kind of get the sense people are fed up with it. I might be fed up with it myself. We like variety. We're not getting that variety right now.
Yeah, we're definitely not. Okay, wait, I'm looking right now. Okay, so last time we had a stretch of more than one, at least this is obviously for Charlotte specifically, last time we had a stretch of more than one day that was below 90 was June 16th.
Wow. So that's been about a month now where you haven't had
Yeah.
more than a day in a row below 90.
That's really,
wild.
that's really crappy.
And it is July. We know it's July, but still, that's a lot to take, right?
I think that's the biggest thing, and I know that's the thing that we're always communicating. I know you are and we are as well, is that when we talk about heat and humidity, yes, we're forecasting, of course, so we're letting people know, but normally when we're kind of honing in on it and we're going weather alert, things like that, it's because of that higher than normal risk, not because we're just doing it for funsies.
Right. And I think a lot of times people can kind of feel the difference, too, with kind of a normal hot day to another day where it might be just a little bit extra, as we call it. And, you know, I was just cutting my grass the other day, and really, you can tell it's not at normal kind of a heat. It really does take a bit of a toll on you. And I saw we popped up my graphics there for just a second. If we could, just in my area specifically, people are just so exasperated and really, you know, I think a little fearful now of each afternoon. So we were talking about this on the news yesterday. What is the deal that's been driving all of the flooding problems? We've had some parts of our area that have had 15 inches of rain or more in the last couple of weeks. So kind of what's been getting at that? We've had the jet stream, which has been really, really far to the north and just cooped up, which is not unusual for this time of year. It's July, right? We're not expecting big Canadian cool downs. But when it's up there, you can't really get access to the nice dry air. So we're not having those good cool fronts. At the same time, you're also seeing a lot of this tropical moisture, you know, moving in from the Gulf. Here it is. We have all that humidity. And that's the way it's been, like Brittany was just saying, for the last 4 to 6 weeks, we've had this oppressive humidity. But I think another piece to it, and something that we kind of take for granted a lot of the times, we call it the Southeast Ridge or the Bermuda High. It's a little farther east than it usually is. And when we think about high pressure when it comes to weather, what high pressure really does is it pushes on the earth and it adds weight to it. So it's pushing a downward force on the air and on the atmosphere. And that can be a good way to avoid rainfall, because if you want to make rain, you want to make showers and thunderstorms, you got to get that air to go up. Heating up the air and making it really hot and humid, that air is going to go up. But without a high pressure to kind of keep it capped, you're just going to get those storms every day. And that's what we've been seeing. And to me, the frustrating thing, Brittany, is there's no wind. So those storms pop up and then they don't move. It's hard for us to tell you when it's going to stop raining at your location when there's nothing to blow it around. It's not like we're tracking a front that's moving at 20 miles per hour. It might just keep sitting on you. And that's what's been the biggest devastating part of it the last couple weeks.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time, too, with tropical systems, right? If there's no steering current, nothing to pick up X storm and move it, it's just going to sit and sit and sit.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I feel like, also have gotten
really
kind
does,
of a triple punch, because you had Chantal, and then you've had so much rain last week, and then so much rain this week. So you've been impacted even more than we have.
Yeah, and we're seeing some of these flooding pictures, you know, from across the area. And it does seem, unfortunately, for some reason, and people have asked me, is there a reason for this? I don't think so, but for some reason the same areas keep getting hit a bit more than others. So in our region, it's been your Alamance counties. They got it worst with the tropical storm that moved through Chantal, and then they've been getting it again. Guilford County, where Greensboro is, we've had part of that too. And then other places like Moseley and Winston-Salem, they've kind of been fine. So it really just depends on where you are. And it does seem like for some reason Mother Nature is picking on some and not on others right now. So we'd like a bit of a break if we could. The lightning has been amazing too, and the flooding, and it's just been one thing after another. So a couple weeks ago when we started this show, Brad and I were talking about how we haven't had much lightning this year, and that's gone. That's just all out the window
It
right
certainly
now.
is. It does look like, though, people are being a little bit safer and smarter. I feel like the social science has worked, at least overall, in terms of lightning deaths, because even though we do see them in the United States, if you look at this data from decades and decades ago, it is at least lower. So I don't know if that's better communication, because people want to spend more time inside, because, you know, the kids these days like to be on their devices and don't like to play outside, or what else it is.
It's too hot to play outside, Brittany.
It's
Maybe.
too hot. That might be part of it. The best part about yesterday's flooding, and it was a horrible, kind of a stressful day, a stressful couple of hours, but the best part about it is I got a video from a viewer that was showing terrible flooding, but the cars were stopping and turning around and going the other way. And that is something that we don't see that much. A lot of times the videos that we get sent in, the people are just kind of chugging along through, but people, in this case at least, were turning around, not drowning, which is something we keep on mentioning. That's where the water rescues come from. That's when people drive in and then they have to get rescued. So maybe the education is catching on a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, the three big things, when thunder roars, move indoors, turn around, don't drown, and stop the grip of the rip if you're going to the coast. So those are the big things I feel like we're always saying that have those little cute little terms for people to remember.
Rhyming works. Rhyming works. Those idioms are definitely helpful for sure.
Yeah, especially when you're showing kids. We need to talk about something else that happened, 2-ish hours ago now? In somewhere that we don't talk about a lot here on this stream.
Earthquakes and Alaska. I don't think we talk about either of them very often, but we're going to do both right now. So this is a major earthquake, Brittany, and you have a great graphic about this here. Tell us a little bit about where this is and what the impacts have been like so far up in our 49th state.
Yes. Okay. So Aleutian Islands. So think southwest of Anchorage. These islands all across from, Unalaska all the way to Anchorage essentially had a 7.2 magnitude just off the coast. Now, remember, you guys, that earthquakes are not meteorology. It is geography. But essentially in the simplest form, when these tectonic plates shift, right, we know that earthquakes can happen. When they happen underwater, this oftentimes allows for a risk for tsunamis. Thankfully, we don't get really, 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 really significant impacts like places like Thailand, over on the other side of the earth. But when a magnitude or an earthquake of this magnitude, 7.2, happens, it's closer to the intense scale. It is much higher than the ones that we get in North Carolina, South Carolina, which are normally 2, 3, very, very weak, barely able to feel them. And so 7 is pretty high. Now, we did have at one point a tsunami warning for that area. It does look like it was at least downgraded, I think, to a tsunami advisory, which if you think like 1, 2, 3 scale, a warning is 3 out of 3 and an advisory is 2 out of 3. So we'll watch this, but I mean, anybody who lives along these Aleutian Islands, I would definitely make sure that they are listening to local officials and keeping a very close eye on how things progress. Tsunamis are actually one of the things, probably weather, earth related, that terrify me the most. So I'm very thankful to live in Charlotte.
Yeah, and when we talk about this part of the world, they call it it's part of that ring of fire, right? As they call it around the Pacific. You have kind of the plate tectonics that you learn about in elementary school. All those plates fit together somehow. You have the borders between the plates. Japan is part of that. Alaska's part of that. California is part of that. So this is on kind of that northern part of the ring of fire. That I'd imagine, not a geologist, I imagine that's why the Aleutian Islands exist in the first place. Probably somewhat volcanic at one point. I'm trying to verify here. On my computer, the tsunami advisor was popping up a minute or two ago, but now it's not showing up anymore. So it's possible that advisory has come to pass. Certainly if you're streaming us in the Alaska area, verify with your local sources. But it did seem like there was an observed water retreat I saw in a couple videos, which usually signals a water rise coming after that. But it hopefully doesn't appear to be a big impact up that way. But I've certainly never felt an earthquake quite that strong, Brittany. But the one that is in my brain is the one we had back, I think it was during COVID, 2020, the magnitude 5 in Sparta. And that woke me up from a dead sleep here in Greensboro, and much of North Carolina felt that one. And Sparta had quite a big shaking and actually some sizable damage up there in the Blue Ridge and the Allegheny County area. Not something that we typically see or probably will see again for a while, but usually ours are not even worth rolling over for, and we're thankful for that.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a 7.2. I just looked at the National Weather Service's website.
Right.
It's still showing orange, which is still an advisory. So it looks like some of those spots are maybe still under an advisory, but it doesn't look like all the islands are. So that might be As you know, sometimes in our weather systems, like as the National Weather Service is changing things, they'll kind of go in and out, and something will pop up and then it will go away. So that's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, and tsunamis are interesting. I kind of they're hard to imagine how that they work, but if you think about like a bowl of water, or maybe like one of those old style bathtubs that has feet and you can kind of get up under there if you wanted to. If you hit the bottom of that thing with some force, that's kind of like an earthquake under the ocean, and then all that energy is going to travel through the bathtub or the bottle of water or the ocean in this case, and those ripples are going to come out on the edges, and they'll look a little bit like nothing, and then they kind of get a little bit like something on the edge. That's kind of how that energy, it gets forced up in the shallower areas, and that's when you can run into some issues. It is interesting if you travel ever in the West Coast. I went to Oregon a couple years ago, and I was so surprised to see this, but they have little signs that say, like, you are entering the tsunami threat zone, or you are leaving the tsunami threat zone.
I think we're leaving.
I
Tim's
wanted to be
weather
dramatic here, so I zoomed out my camera.
Did you do that on purpose?
I don't know how that happened, but that's pretty nice.
That was
I don't
very
know.
dramatic.
I now
I'm
know
just,
which camera
figuring
Tim
it out.
has because I have the same camera at home. It's because Tim. It's because you went like this.
Yes.
That it zoomed.
Okay, so this is my my being Italian touch because I'm talking with my hands, and it's
I'm scared.
it's just doing that. All right,
Oh my
we're gonna
gosh.
figure this out.
Wait, that's so funny.
Anyway, thanks, James.
Okay, sorry, we got a little bit off topic.
It happens to me at home too.
James. Okay, so Tim, obviously we talked a lot about flash flooding, why it's happening more. There is a story
Yes.
that CNN did today, and we do want to take it to just talk a little bit more about the science behind why flash flooding is happening more often. Then we'll come back and talk more local before we go.
Experts say a combination of factors are contributing to the intense rainfall and deadly flooding that have hit areas across the country, from the Texas Hill Country to New York City.
Heavy rain and deadly flash flooding putting communities across the United States underwater.
It feels like events like last night, again, not just in New Jersey, but as a general matter, are coming more frequently with more intensity.
Summer is flash flood season, when intense daytime heat can fuel thunderstorms and warm air can hold more moisture. But experts say these recent events were more significant for several reasons. Along with high daytime temperatures in parts of the country, we've also seen record levels of atmospheric moisture, which helped drive heavy rainfall that led to deadly flooding in Texas and North Carolina. Summer storms also tend to move more slowly or even stall due to winds in the upper atmosphere being weaker.
And as a result, just deluging places that are not designed to handle that amount of precipitation in that short a period of time.
Recent wildfires also causing problems in areas like Ruidoso, New Mexico, burning away vegetation, and in some areas the fire's extreme heat changing the soil's natural ability to absorb and slow down rainwater. Droughts can have a similar effect too, something we saw amplify deadly flooding in Texas. Urban areas are not immune either, where asphalt pavement and older drain systems can be overrun.
There is a growing recognition in financial markets, in the scientific community, and starting in infrastructure planning, that we are dealing with a much different beast in terms of the weather patterns that we're experiencing, and things have to change.
And more than 3,000 flash flood warnings have been issued this year so far by National Weather Service offices across the country. That's the highest total at this point in time in the year since the record started being taken back in 1986. In Washington, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
I think the big thing that people always
Interesting
need to
for
remember,
sure.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. There's still a delay,
Yeah,
Tim.
I mean, what you were saying is probably the same thing as I was going to say, is just that when you have warmer air, it can hold more moisture, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem.
And I think it's an important thing too. I did a climate IQ today on climate change and hurricanes. We talk about this all the time, is that we're never trying to pinpoint climate change impact on one specific weather event, because that's not how that works. Climate is a pattern over time. But while climate change can't make
Right.
more hurricanes, or it can't produce a storm from nothing, because of the increase in tropical moisture, it can allow for heavier rainfall events. And I think that's like where the science, gets politicized and kind of dropped off of, like, it's not producing more, it's just what is being produced is heavier, more prolonged, etc.
And that's the scary thing. When we talk about heavier rainfall, you're turning like a downpour into more of a torrential downpour, or a regular thunderstorm into a heavier thunderstorm, that can be, a really bad trend and a suffocating feeling that I believe, I've been in the Carolinas about 15 years now. This is something that we've noticed quite a bit. More frequency of heavy rainfall events, whether they be tropical or otherwise. This is something that might be kind of the way we do it going forward, where you are getting more of these extreme rainfall events. You're probably not going to notice a huge difference between, the average temperature in July was 80 versus 79. But the impact of that is more rain, more water, more flooding. That's not what you want to have. And some of the research would suggest, too, that some of those storms are stalling out more with weaker flow. That's also what you don't really want to have. Before we let you go, this is our area over the last 6 days. Just radar estimates, but anywhere from 5 to 7 inches. This does not include the tropical storm Chantal moisture at all.
Wow.
So parts of Alamance County have had about 15 inches plus just since July 1st. And the average is 3 to 4 inches for a month of rainfall.
I think I did see you
And
tweet
there's not
that
much you
out.
can do
That's
about it.
wild.
So people are saying, can you fix the flooding? Not with that kind of rain, you can't. You just can't deal with it. Good luck, because this is just too much water too quickly, and that's what flooding is. So
Yeah. We're keeping a
been
close
bad
eye on the flooding and the heat the next few days. Join us tomorrow, same time, same place, with Tim and myself for WCNC and WFMY Weather Impact Live.